You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
We're going to get started with the Town of Branford Board of Finance regular meeting, June 28th, 2021. And first on the agenda is citizens communication. This is the time where we enable approximately 10 minutes or so for input from the public with regards to items that are on the agenda. Is there anyone who would like to speak to that? Wayne Cook? Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Okay, Wayne? Not sure if we could hear you. You got the mic, all right.
I don't need to be too repetitive of last time I was here, but I know you guys are looking to appropriate the funds tonight for the animal shelter. And, you know, again, I'm not going to sit here and say it's a bad idea. Animal shelter is a very good idea, and it's just a matter of how we go about it. So what I did was I put together a few items that you might consider before you appropriate too quickly. And again, they might be addressed later on during the item itself. 1 minute. The first one is to be specifically aware of the itemization of the 1.7 million overrun. I got a couple things from somebody, and I still didn't see itemization that I was looking for. I was looking for, like, okay, here's the 28, 2.8, here's 4.5, here's how we got from there to there, and that was it. And I still didn't see it. So I don't really know what's going on there, but if you could address that. Second item is the pros and cons of solar energy. And the first selectman mentioned last time the PPA, which is the power purchase agreement, which is, you know, as you know, one down at Haver. You know, those two concepts are extremely controversial in terms of there are pros and cons. So I don't know if it's in the community's interest if you okay a building on the premise that you're going to have a PPA or even your own solar system without fully analyzing the pros and cons of each of those. And I don't think that's been done. I really don't think that's been done. And I think it has to be done before you can make a fully, informed vote on this. The second one was why, and I asked them tonight, I was at their meeting, I call them the green cult, and I guess they're getting used to it, but, why were they given full authority to oversee this energy plan for this building? They're an ad hoc committee. And they always say, well, we're ad hoc, we don't have any authority. Well, clearly you do, because Greg Ames and the lady McCarthy, Mercury, and I got the emails where they're going back and forth with the engineer about the whole energy plan. I mean, they designed it. So what authority did they have to design the energy plan? And again, I don't even see anywhere where that is outlined in terms of cost or whatever. Now, one thing I got a little bit, well, I won't say disturbed, that's too strong, but when the first selectman at the last meeting, and we can't talk at the end of the meeting because you have your rules, but he said, well, this is not going to be a solar building. Well, come on. There's not going to be a solar panel on the roof of the building, but there's going to be 4,000 or 5,000 square feet of panels outside the building. The building is completely solar. I called the engineer that was in the emails. I forget his name, Pete Ceramic or something. I think he's down here off of, I don't know where he is exactly. He said, yeah, it's a solar building. It's an absolutely solar building. And you got the first selectman sitting up there and saying, well, not solar, we're going to decide later on. You're not going to decide later on. You got it all planned. It's absolutely all. And here's here's another key question that has to be answered. 2 or 3 contractors called me, not directly after the meeting, but after they saw it on, BCTV, they said, Wayne, for what it's worth, when you build a building for solar energy, it's different than if you build it for conventional energy, such as natural gas. Different installation, different, construction, different everything. So I wonder how much is that factored into this? I mean, that's another key question that has got to be asked. I asked the building committee last night. I called Peter Banka, chairman. Peter and I go back right since I was like 2 years old, Stony Creek. But the point is, that aside, I said, Peter, why does your committee come in halfway through this project? I mean, with all respect to the entire Board of Finance, you guys are very talented when it comes to finance, but you don't know construction that well. So the question is, why don't you bring in the building committee first, look at the construction plans, and say, this isn't really the way to go about it. This is going to be too expensive. Because quite frankly, what are you guys going to be looking at tonight? I mean, you asked for a more itemized budget. Fine, that was good. But do you really know what you're looking at? I mean, with those really no due respect. I mean, it's no disrespect, but you're not contractors. The people on that committee, the Babe Hampsons, the people that are in there that know contracting and know construction, they should be the ones weighing in. There's the issue of the fundraising, which I'll skip over that one. That bothers them. I have 7 FOIA requests out there which have not been addressed, and I think they are, quite frankly, important. And then there's one last thing, and I know this board well enough, and you're probably going to do what you're going to do anyhow. But I thought this was I think it went viral over the last week, and it's the problem I have, and Chairman and I go back 50-something years, and we've known each other a long time. So I think we've liked each other most of those. But the point is that I have a problem with the way that this is structured, that we have 10 minutes talk, and then have to shut up. And then when the item comes up, we still can't say anything, even though somebody, with all respect, like the first selectman says the other night, something that I knew was mistaken. And I wanted to say something, and I couldn't say anything else. But I want to read this to the whole community if I could. I think this was really, really good. And it doesn't have to relate necessarily to the shelter, but it's worth looking at. This is the Supreme Court of the United States. And if you can see what the guy said, he was excellent. He was from Pennsylvania. He spoke to the Board of Education down there. And he said this directly from the case of the New York Times versus Sullivan, 1964. He said, "This nation is founded upon the profound national commitment to the principle that debate on public issues should be uninhibited, robust, and wide open, and that it may well include vehement, caustic, and sometimes unpleasantly sharp attacks on government and public officials." Well, then why do I bring that up? Because we should be able to say whatever we want to say. And quite frankly, and I'll close with this, the RTM, and I won't name names, but even the Board of Selectmen had adopted during the Zoom policy this, I don't even know what it was. If you called somebody dishonest, you were thrown out of the meeting. I mean, that happened to me like what, half a dozen times? I said, somebody's being dishonest. Next thing I know, Noam may, mention Ray Ingraham, but he throws me out of the meeting and I'm gone. Well, compare that policy to what the Supreme Court says. The point is this: do what you want with the building. Beautiful building. If you want to appropriate the 1.7, I'm not going to cry myself to sleep. If you do, you don't. There's reasons to, and there's reasons not to. But the one thing I get particularly sensitive about, and I think I think we all should, is when our right to speak becomes even remotely compromised. I would ask the chairman, not tonight, I don't think I'll have a lot to say, but please reconsider your policy that give the public a certain amount to say, at the beginning. But if they have a question or clarification or something during the item itself, that should be allowed. And again, with all respect, Joe, that's not to say we should get into some rousing debate, because you don't want that either. But I think it's important to allow the public to be able to participate once that item is on the table. Thanks for listening.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else like to address the board on agenda items? I just make a note to the clerk that I did receive a letter after 5 o'clock today from Bobby Costanzo, and I'll let you include that as part of the minutes. Sure. Okay. Next on the agenda is item number 2, to consider and if appropriate approve a transfer request from the Board of Police Commissioners for the following fiscal 21 transfer. And I'll read them from regular wages and salaries, $137,546.31. From overtime, $45,000. Seasonal and part-time, $28,000 for a subtotal of $210,546.31. Transferring into capital fund, $114,000, and into accumulated sick, $96,546.31 for a total of $210,546. And then within the 700 capital account, be a transfer in of $114,000, and an authorization for vehicles, $72,000, and police department vehicle equipment, $42,000, for a total of $114,000. Welcome, Chief.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The two transfers, the first one, the accumulated sick pay, that has to do with a total of 5 employees. 2 were unexpected retirements pursuant to their collective bargaining agreement, as well as the drop program that we have. We need to transfer for that expenditure. And the second is just basically to purchase and upfit 2 police vehicles that were not funded in this coming fiscal year.
Okay, questions from the chief?
Through you, Mr.
Harry?
Chairman.
Sure, Harry.
With the 2 retirees, have you been able to fill the positions yet?
Yes, we were very fortunate. We were able to secure a certified officer that's going to start as of July 1, and that'll bring us up to full staff for the first time in a very long time. So yes, we will be full staff as of July 1.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions from the board? Bob?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move it.
Been moved by Bob.
I'll second it, Joe.
Seconded by Jeff. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Next is to hear a request from the tax collector to approve the suspense list for the 2015 grand list. Welcome, Roberta.
Gentlemen, it's nice to see everyone three-dimensional.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so for the 2015 grand list year, that is the suspense grand list year, this time around, we are looking at a total of $47,899 in motor vehicle taxes, $9,292.28 in motor vehicle supplemental, and $39,510.55 in personal property, for a total of $96,701.99. This is a reduction, actually, from last year. For kicks, I printed out last year's total, and it is about $2,000 less than last year. So I don't know if that means anything to you or not, but I did notice that.
So this is 2015, and we've gone through any collection activities with regards to these?
Well, with these, here's what happens with these. The beauty of motor vehicle taxes is if anyone's trying to re-register their car in their name, they can't unless their taxes are paid. So for the motor vehicle and motor vehicle supplemental bills that are being moved to suspense, these are people that have probably moved out of state or have not tried to register a car in their own name, and sometimes just change the spelling of their name to get it registered, to get past it. So these are not being removed completely. It's just a matter of, we're not counting on getting the money, but it is still out there and it is collectible. Personal property is a little bit different. A lot of the, all of the listings on the personal property list, the businesses are out of business.
Okay, questions from the tax collector, Charlie?
Hey, Bobby, this is around the 2015 grand list. How long a time does the town try to collect it itself before you turn it over to the collection?
By statute, we can collect up to 15 years. You didn't mean that. You meant how far do we keep going?
Yeah.
Well, motor vehicle, we're always trying to get. Personal property, we do UCC1 liens. We, call and ask, we push, but we get what we can. So, as far as how long we try to collect by statute, we can collect up to 15 years. Was that your question?
How long does the town try independently, before you turn it over to an authorized collection?
Okay, motor vehicle gets turned over every year.
Oh, every year?
Every year motor vehicle gets turned over. Personal property doesn't really get turned over. We put UCC1 liens on, and we have the ability to do deeper collections with marshals and snatching equipment and such, but that has not been our practice just yet. It might be something we have to look at.
Thank you.
So we really don't turn these over to a collection agency. What happens is that we turn over the motor vehicle list each year to the state. If somebody tries to collect, someone tries to register, in that name, exactly the way it's written, et cetera, then they may not be able to register unless they pay the tax. The others, we don't pursue.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. However, motor vehicle, we do turn motor vehicle over every year to a collection agency.
You do?
Yes, we do.
Okay. And in addition to providing it to the state?
Yes.
Okay. Then I stand corrected, thank you. But the personal property?
Personal property, UCC1 liens,
Right.
If they're trying to, if it's a business that requires a license, we can withhold a license if they owe back taxes, that kind of thing.
So you turn over the motor vehicle list, the delinquent motor vehicle list gets turned over to a collection agency every year.
Yes.
So they've actually had this list for several years.
Yes.
And so this is dead.
And again, they're probably moved out of state, can't find them, et cetera.
Got it. Mm-hmm. Okay, do you have any thoughts of folks that should be registering in Connecticut that register out of state and bring their cars into Branford or into Connecticut?
I'm not quite sure how we would find them, but it sounds like a good idea to me.
Okay, other questions?
Through you, Mr. Chairman.
Harry.
Bobby, you're up to snuff now with your staff?
Oh, yes.
You are?
Yes.
So in that particular time frame now, because I know people come on board, they're all fully trained or they're taking the courses necessary?
No. Fully trained is a really odd thing to say. I've been here 3.5 going on 4 years and I don't feel fully trained. However, the two newest staff members were not able to register for the first of the CCMC courses for the spring because they were held virtual and they limited how many people could register. So they have not begun their classes yet. They won't begin until the fall.
Okay.
They'll be in class number 1 in the fall.
So are you able to move ahead with delinquencies now that you have the staff?
Well, yes, I'm actually able to, yes.
Have that?
Yes.
Okay. So you had promised us a monthly document, which we haven't seen yet, a summary?
Right. You're talking about, are you talking about the tax collector's report, the collection rate?
Yeah.
I'll share this conversation with Catherine. We have a system. I do have what we call a dashboard, which shows the collection rate for real estate, motor vehicle supplemental, and personal property. However, there's a question to the validity of the numbers per se, so I'll let Catherine jump in on that. I have it though, I'll give it to you.
We're hoping to have it by next month when the audit is hopefully complete for 1920. There was a glitch in the software system. They had closed out one of the years early, so they've reactivated that list, but the glitch keeps happening. So in order, I just didn't want to hand out inaccurate information. I'd prefer to have a year closed fully in that system without any type of audit issue. And then we should be able to present the numbers. And I'm hoping to do it next month.
Okay, thank you. I just have a couple of more questions.
Sure.
And how are you doing on your education credentials?
Well, I have finished all 4 courses, passed all 4 courses, and I hate to say this in public, but I took the CCMC state exam on May something or other. I am embarrassed to report that I missed passing by 1/2 a point. So I have to take it again in December. Not the end of the world, a little disappointing after all the work of getting through all 4 classes and passing those tests, but 1/2 a point.
Okay.
So,
I won't ask you the question till the fall.
thank you.
Or you can speak first. You can come in.
Yes, I will. Because let me tell you, had I passed it, you all would have already known. So I would have sent you a personal note, but 1/2 a point. So almost there.
Okay.
Almost there.
All right, good luck. Anything else, Eric?
Yeah, no, we don't see anything on the coding when we look at this. We see 3 boxes here which give us totals, which is important. But in order to really read, this report, it would be, I think it would behoove us if we had some information. I don't know what your software does or what it doesn't do, because I don't know what boxes individuals would fall into who are individuals and are not like coded out of business or something like that.
So out of business, deceased, moved out of state.
Yeah.
Okay, I believe that might take a little bit more research, but I can certainly provide that for you. The personal property list, these are all out of business. That column is filled for the personal property report. The motor vehicle sup, I'll see what I can do as far as getting updated reason codes for you.
Yeah.
Generally, it's because they're unfindable. They've moved out of state. Deceased would have fallen off before. I normally don't include deceased, but I could double check that. But generally, they're just unfindable.
Well, your access locally is with the registrar of voters in terms of looking at delinquencies and have people re-registered another car, but you haven't sent it off yet to the motor vehicle department within a year. There's always people like one day ahead of you. I don't want to use the word scamming the system, but trying to
You can use that. It works. It's true.
Yeah. So is there a way we can tighten that up?
I will see what else can be done with it. I will look into that. It's not something, a practice that I've had before, but I'll find out how deep we can go.
Back in earlier days, I think,
How early?
1981, I'd suggest, I think they used to publish the tax code, the delinquent taxpayers over a certain amount of dollar called Pete's List. That was the first selectman at the time, Peter Oblondy. And
They published it?
They published it in the Branford Review. So there are ways of
Well, Jamie, we can
and
talk.
I think the tax department used to have their top 10 delinquents, but anyhow, I think Harry's anxious, as we all are, to wish you the best of luck in collection of all of these suspense or delinquencies, as well as with your test.
Thank you very much.
Other comments or suggestions? Somebody want to
Joe,
move
if
it?
I may, I'll move it.
Jeff, go ahead.
No, I'll move it.
Move it, good.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded by Victor. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thanks, Bobby.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay, what's next? Item number 4 is, let's see, to continue discussion on the Dan Cosgrove Animal Shelter Facility Expansion Appropriation, and to consider, if appropriate, an appropriation, approve the following transfer requests and resolutions. And so I will read this resolution, and then we'll have some conversation and ask additional questions. Resolve that the Board of Finance recommends to the RTM an appropriation from the increased undesignated fund balance in the amount $650,000. This transfer will increase the fiscal year 2021 general fund budget from $118,867,730 to $119,517,730, and will use to partially fund the animal shelter renovation. So I'll leave it at that to begin the conversation. Who wants to open up? Laura, you want to give us an update on with regards to your fundraising?
Sure. So I want to go over a couple different things. We did have a fundraiser this past Thursday, and I'll talk about that a little bit after. But since then, more than 60% of the individual donors have now come from Branford or North Branford, as well as 60% of the money in now is from either Branford or North Branford residents, where it was a little different before Thursday, and I kind of thought after Thursday we'd see things even out a little bit, and it has. I just want to talk about the Dan Cosgrove Animal Shelter Commission members, because we haven't focused on this piece at all, but the commission as a group has donated $278,000 as individuals towards this project. So they're extremely invested in this as well, and they deserve a lot of credit for all of the work that they've put into it, as well as all the money that they've donated. So right now, approximately 1,333 people, businesses, and or foundations have donated towards the project. And I've stated this before, but donations have come from as far away as California, Texas, and Hawaii. At this past Thursday's fundraising event, we had a resident and local business owner, Bobby and Shelley Massey, step up and give a $150,000 donation towards the construction of this new facility. We had supporters come in from as far away as New Jersey for this event. And as a matter of fact, one particular individual who came in from New Jersey, she's already donated $5,000 towards this project. And when she heard that prices, of course, have gone up on materials, when she walked in and she saw me, she gave another $25,000 to ensure that this project would move forward. We also had individuals that couldn't make the event donate online from New York, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. This local community shelter affects much more than the people just on the shoreline, and supporters have shown that by donating and being there for us, the animals, and this community. So that's the update.
Okay, thanks. What I think I'll do is read the letter that Jim Finch prepared for the meeting. Jim is not with us. Wasn't able to join us tonight, but I will read the letter that he put together, which will kind of give us a recap. And then if we have questions with regards to some of the information that we received from Enterprise, the board can pursue that as well. So maybe I will read Jim's letter dated June 25th. Animal shelter. For review. Sorry about that. I turned the mic on. Okay, so I'm going to read the letter that Jim Finch prepared for me. I attach for your review and consideration a resolution to increase the appropriation for the shelter renovation from $2,895,000 to $4,595,000. For reference, I'm attaching a copy of the letter that I sent on June 11th. It says July 11th, but it was June 11th, as it summarizes the approach and actions required. Following the last meeting, I understood that the board was looking to receive additional information from the construction manager, an update on the fundraising efforts, and finally a scenario that reduced the cost to future taxpayers below $306,000. My sense was the board supported the shared framework approach. To assist the board, I've attached a spreadsheet which provides a comparison of the following scenarios. The original appropriation from last fall, the request is outlined in my letter from the last meeting, a scenario reducing costs to future taxpayers from $306,000 to $250,000. A better case scenario and a worst case scenario. As the board is familiar with the first two columns, I will include a brief discussion on the remaining columns. What Jim did is he recapped where we have moved from the original appropriation, the funding of it, and where we ended up with the new cost factors as well as the anticipated revenues to offset those costs. Approaches to reduce the cost to future taxpayers from $306,000 to $250,000. As we discussed at the last meeting, some of the revenue components are interconnected, and thus an adjustment to one variable may present unintended challenges for the other components. As an example, if the board were to increase the appropriation from fund balance, it would impact the amount from North Branford would have to be required to pay over the next 5 years. Admittedly, this is doable. However, it may not be received favorably since it's inconsistent with North Branford's prior expectations. Alternatively, asking the Shelter Commission and the staff to raise an additional $56,000 would be easier task, as this would simply result in a minor change to the bond resolution. Better case scenario, under the scenarios, all things go our way with donations exceeding expectations, and North Branford is fully on board with all their related commitments, fund balance, debt service, etc. And I'll go over the different scenarios after I read the letter. Maybe a little confusing, but again, this letter will be part of the minutes. Worst case scenario, admittedly, one can develop many combinations of scenarios with various levels of commitment from each of the stakeholders. Essentially, these scenarios, as well as mine, are not guaranteed as they are based on probable outcomes. Therefore, the approach outlined in the worst case scenario takes the position that one should not focus on the probability of an unfavorable outcome, but rather the consequence of an unfavorable outcome. Essentially, this exercise forces decision makers to determine if an approach is worth pursuing after considering the risks and whether these risks will result in an outcome for which the recovery is slow and painful. The worst case scenario assumes donations remain static based on the original budget, and none of these donations are earmarked for the Sustainable Connecticut matching funds. Finally, the scenario assumes that North Branford partners with another community, thereby escaping any previous commitments to Branford. Other considerations. I want to underscore for the board as well as the RTM that the approval of this resolution commits the town to funding the full amount of the appropriation, that shortfalls in any other revenue sources will be offset by borrowing. The challenges in financing this project is to strive for Goldilocks scenario in which the amount borrowed perfectly matches the net amount required from non-debt sources. As we ultimately realize excess bond proceeds, we will allocate these dollars for projects with unfinanced balances. Conclusion. This memo, along with the attached worksheet, is intended to provide additional scenarios to assist you in the decisions. I have also included an attachment with revised resolution and transfers. Please note that if your decision differs from the attachment, it will require amendments to the resolution. I will go over this with Catherine before the meeting. And Jim has some attached notes, which is with regards to the Sustainable Connecticut Community Match Fund. Is an innovative program which provides fast, flexible funding and support for engaging your community on a wide-ranging sustainability projects. Eligibility projects receive dollar-for-dollar matching funds from Sustainable Connecticut. The town of Branford has twice used the Community Match Fund for previous campaigns. The shelter would be the third match fund campaign, is expected to generate $25,000 in donations, which is with an anticipated $25,000 match from the Sustainable Connecticut Energy Fund. Efficiency is a top priority for the Community Match Fund, which makes the shelter a great candidate for the initiative. The funding will cover an incremental cost from the energy savings technology used in the construction of the new and renovated building. Now, Jim did provide the original worksheets, and I'll hit the original and then I'll look at the best case and worst case scenario. Original funding was $2,895,000. We had total revenue of $855,000, which was from $25,000 from the Sustainable Connecticut and $100,000 from the Animal Control Fund balance and $730,000 from donations. So the net bonding was $2,040,000. And over time, I'll skip to the bottom here, of a tax bill of $5,000, it would be an additional $4.53. So then we also went through the other scenarios. The scenario we're looking at tonight is the original appropriation of $2,895,000, additional funding of $1,700,000 for a total of $4,595,000. The revenue is at estimated at $2,390,000, which is comprised of $25,000 from Sustainable Connecticut, $100,000 from the Animal Control Fund balance, $214,500 from the town of North Branford, $650,000 from fund balance, and $1,400,500 from donations, for a total of $2,390,000. So the net bonding would be $2,205,000 versus the original amount of $2,040,000. The impact on a tax bill of $5,000 is $4.90. And Jim did point out the worst case scenario, which basically says that I have the full amount of the debt, and I only get $1,480,000, which is comprised of the animal control numbers of $100,000, the fund balance of $650,000, and donations of $730,000, which is the cash basically that you've received to date or close to it. So, and I think the point is, no matter what appropriation that we approve here, either this project or other projects, if there's any type of contingent revenues that we're expecting, they're always, at the end of the day, whatever we bond, we have to pay for, which we've done for the past 50, 60 years. So. And as I did read that original resolution, there's a couple other transfers that would be required. But before we move to any type of motions, I'd like to have maybe a recap from Brian with regards to the information that was forwarded to the board. And what that did is go through the detailed guaranteed maximum price estimate and bid results. Correct. And it provided us with the details of the bidding and the apparent low bidders that at least came in dollar-wise, which then were subject to scrutiny by the construction manager. And then you have a listing of estimated, the standard estimate report based on the bids that came in.
That's correct.
So if you'd like to provide an overview of that, I think that would be helpful for the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what we forwarded on the 16th after request after we met last time was again a summary of the bid results that were publicly opened in this room on the 17th of May 2021, sorted by trade. Each individual trade was sorted into what we term as a bid package. So that's divided by scope. So for example, the site work bids that were received, there were a total of 8 bids received on the 17th for site work, ranging from a bid of $55,750 for a partial site work scope of site concrete, all the way to the high bid of $619,000. So our effort from that process was to take the apparent low bidders and enter them into our standard estimating report, which was also shared with you folks, which is behind the bid results. So what that does is it essentially sorts the apparent low bids into a divisional format, sorted from divisions 2 through 16, which is just the way we use to kind of organize the construction process. Captures any other costs, such as our general conditions cost, and then totals on the back page to the total guaranteed maximum price price, or a GMP, which is the $3.8 million. Now, subsequent to that, we were also provided the soft cost information from John and everyone else at the town, and we just, for the sake of brevity, added it to the report to show a kind of total comprehensive estimate. But again, our guaranteed maximum price is $3.8 million based on the apparent low bids received, as well as the other ancillary costs that were included in the estimate. Yep.
Thank you, Brian. We have board members have questions with regards to the GMP information supplied. Bob?
Brian, just a clarification again on the heating system.
Yes.
Would you mind just going through that, the heat pump?
Sure. So
versus the solar that we hear about?
So I'm not an engineer, nor did I design the system, but I understand it enough on the surface to be able to say that this is an electric heat pump system called a VRF, or variable refrigerant flow. So it's essentially an electric heat pump that is moving heat from the air into the building, or from on days like today, moving the heat from the building outside. It's not using electricity to generate heat like the old electric baseboards that we used to see. So it's a very highly efficient system that has what's called a coefficient of performance over 3. So it's basically making cold air from by removing the heat from the building and then inputting it into the structure. Additionally, there's what's called a energy recovery ventilator, which is capturing any waste heat from the building exhaust and repurposing it back into the building. So the solar design of the system, as I understand it, is a potential way to help the electrical consumption of the building, but the building is designed to work as a highly efficient electric heat pump without it. The solar just helps save that cost of having to pay for the electricity down the road.
And then the hot water heater, how is that the design on that?
So it's a solar hot water heater. It's using solar energy to heat, to again, not directly heat hot water, but it's heating a fluid, which then has a heat exchanger to then heat the water. So again, in our pricing, we were asked to have the plumbing contractors install the system that would be provided to us by the owner. I'm not 100% clear on the way. I think it's a donation, John. I don't know if you can clarify that, but we, again, our bidders were asked to install it and then certify it, test it, and ensure it's operating.
Great. And today that's the only solar piece that we have.
Correct. The installation of that system. That's correct.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, and so just to clarify, the solar is not part of the scope, not in the construction documents.
We have a very limited component of the solar. Basically, our electricians were asked to provide what we call infrastructure, so literally conduit, and within the panel boards, there's space that's allocated for it, but the actual provision or installation of the solar beyond the hot water heater installation component was not, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And with regards to, if you could just provide, I don't know if you're prepared to, a recap on the 1.7 million difference.
Sure. So that was the report I had prepared last time. So we basically took the original appropriation and used it and inserted it into our format to try to provide an analysis of what had changed from the original budget, which was produced before we were brought on board as the CM, to the time of the GMP back in May. So what we saw is the major. There were certain line items that didn't have costs allocated. There were some that did, which we didn't foresee any costs in. But generally speaking, the differential was mostly a combination of material escalation that we're seeing, as well as some allocation of costs in the original budget that didn't appear to be made appropriately.
Okay. Does the board have any other questions with regards to the 1.7? Okay. Thank you. Jamie, a question with regards to the role of the building committee.
Sure. Thank you, Joe. So the building committee, as we may know, we have a standing building commission that accepts projects. They don't initiate projects. When the town decides to move forward with a project, and often when, as they progress and receive an appropriation, the project will be then handed off to the building committee. They're currently working on the Walsh Middle School. They completed the community center project, and they will be receiving this project. They were involved in the selection of Enterprise when they went out for an RFP for CM. So if this project is to move forward, the building commission then will accept this project, and then they'll manage the project throughout. As you may know, there are 5 standing members, and we appoint up to 4 user group members. Those are members who serve on the committee and make decisions to ensure the interest of the actual user group is considered as decisions are made, whether there's a change order, add, a deduction. You want to have some voice on there that actually represents the user group. So this is a similar process that we've followed on other projects. And if I just may add one other thing, Chairman Moni, with the VRFs, and I just want, these aren't, I don't think by any means a radical decision to use this equipment. I think this is where many projects are actually incorporating this type of mechanical units within their project. And actually the community center has heat pump, VRF heat pumps as well.
Thank you. Okay. I'm going to
say one thing, and I know I'm out of order. You can throw me out if you want, but this is exactly what I'm talking about. I have about 10 questions I'd like to ask with no opportunity.
Sorry, Wayne.
You know?
Pledges for Lauren.
Pardon?
That's a good question. Of Lauren.
Yes.
What was the total amount that was pledged Thursday night?
So pledges, well, the donations and pledges that came in for the entire event.
I mean, was all that pledged on Thursday night?
That's Thursday's event, yes.
Okay. So in addition, that was 300 plus whatever is in the bank?
Plus an additional about $450,000 in pledges.
Okay.
In addition to the approximately $750,000 that's in the bank right now.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Okay, I'm going to read some resolutions for your consideration. And I'll reread the first one. Hello?
Yeah. I just want to be clear. I think when you listed the scenarios, I believe the 628 column actually matches the resolution that's before you. So there was an additional, that was 56,000 above, that was going to be added to the fundraising effort from the 6/15 meeting. I just, when you went down the list, you were referencing the better case.
Yeah.
Which.
I'll just have to change numbers on the resolutions.
So just wanted to be clear, if that's, sounds like this.
I'm not following you. What are you saying? The resolution needs to be changed?
If you're looking at the column, the 3 columns that Jim has on the letter, if the resolution that you have before you takes into account the numbers on the 628 meeting column. However, when you were speaking, you wrote read the numbers from the better case column. So I'll just have to give you updated numbers for the resolution if that's the column you're looking at using.
Okay, but I think if I look at the resolution, which I'll read,
Yep.
it seems to be consistent with what we've been discussing, correct, or not?
That would increase the bonding cost by $250,000, the resolution that you have. But when you had referenced the $2,205,000 number, that's only increasing it by $165,000.
Because I thought Okay, so what are the numbers
You'd like to use the best case column or
on the resolution?
The numbers on that increases the bonding by the 250,000. I think the rationale for giving you the better case scenario is that hopefully if fundraising efforts exceed what we're anticipating, then you're bonding for less. I think that's what Jim was giving the best case, the better case column for. But the resolution you have before you is increasing the bonding by 250,000.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to read some resolutions here. Resolved that the Board of Finance recommends to the RTM an appropriation from the increased undesignated fund balance in the amount $650,000. This transfer will increase the fiscal year 2021 general fund budget from $118,867,730 to $119,517,730, and will be used to partially fund the animal shelter renovation. I would accept a motion on that.
I'll second.
Been moved by Harry.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Jeff. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Next, I will read a general fund transfer, which will be increased fund balance appropriation, $650,000. Increased transfer to municipal facilities, Fund 720, $650,000. That's a resolution, possibly. Somebody want to move it?
I'll second it.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Next would be Fund 720 appropriation adjustments. Increase donations and contributions, $580,500. Transfer in $650,000 from general fund. North Branford contribution, $214,500. And bond proceeds, $250,000 for a total of $1,700,000. And offsetting increase in appropriation of $1,700,000.
I'll move that.
I'll second.
Okay. Thank you. And then I will move to item number 5.
You gonna vote it?
The motion been made and seconded. Thanks, Jeff. And Charlie, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next is to consider an appropriation, and I'm going to read the appropriation. Resolution amending a resolution appropriating $2,895,000 for the renovation and expansion of the Branford Animal Shelter and authorizing issuance of $2,895,000 bonds to said made appropriation and pending the issuance of the bonds, making temporary borrowing of such purpose. And section 1 will be for that amended resolution. The resolution adopted September 9th, 2020, entitled Resolution Appropriating $2,895,000 for the renovation and expansion of the Branford Animal Shelter and authorizing the issuance of $2,895,000 in bonds of the town to meet such appropriation and pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowing for such purpose, which is hereby ratified, confirmed, and adopted, and is amended, and increasing the appropriation and bond authorization by $1,700,000 to the total of $4,595,000 as follows. Title of the resolution is amended to read the following: Resolution appropriating $4,595,000 for the renovation and expansion of the Branford Animal Shelter and authorizing the issuance of $4,595,000 bonds of the town of Branford to meet said appropriation and pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowings for such purpose. Section 3 is Section 2 of the resolution is amended following by substituting the following. Total estimated cost of the project is $4,595,000 and expected to be paid from an estimated $1,315,500 to be raised for the project pursuant to the capital campaign by public contributions, energy rebates, fund balance, and the town of Branford. Contribution from the town of North Branford and the balance from bonds and authorized herein. Section 4, the first section of Section 3 is amended to read as follows. To meet said appropriation, $4,595,000 in bonds of the town or so much thereof as such be necessary for such purpose shall be issued, maturing not later than 20th year after the date. In Section 5, the resolution is further amended by substituting $4,595,000 for the original $2,895,000, wherever it appears in the resolution.
I'll move it, Joe.
Then moved by Jeff,
Second.
seconded by Victor. Is there discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you and good luck. Okay, with no other business to come before the board, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.